Hello, I am with Elissa Moses, Executive Vice President of Neuro and Behavior Science Innovation Center at IPSOS. Elissa, thank you very much for taking the time to being with us talking about neuromarketing.
My pleasure.
Elissa, let's start with fundamentals. What is neuromarketing?
Neuromarketing is really a new subdivision of market research and of marketing, and it really was born out of the fact that neuroscience has developed so much more understanding about how people make decisions, about how emotions are processed, and that learning has filtered into the whole marketing and market research industry. So it's an embracing of these new kinds of understandings, particularly as they are described as System 1 by Daniel Kahneman. And it primarily refers to non-conscious response.
Good. What are the complexities of neuromarketing?
Well, there are many. Partly, or fundamentally, we're starting with a deep science. And so a lot of people don't have the experience with the science, and so sometimes they misunderstand things, or they get only part of the story right. They embrace tools they may not understand. And so it really does help to have some kind of a guide that has neuroscience understanding, experience, and can be a real practitioner in terms of knowing what to do with it. It's not just about knowing the science, it's about knowing how to apply it to the research and the marketing world.
Okay. What is the way to measure neuromarketing project, the success of neuromarketing projects?
The success of a neuromarketing project has to do with the value that is perceived to be derived from it by the clients and the people that are working on it. The most immediate value comes from diagnostics, understanding, depending on what you're measuring and what the objectives of the study are, but understanding if you lose emotional engagement in a certain point in a commercial, if the visceral reaction upon seeing a new package or experiencing a new product is negative, that's really important learning. And so because of the specificity of knowledge that comes from neuromeasurements, you have the ability to have great detailed learning about how people are reacting unconsciously beyond what they can maybe put into words. That's the beginning. Over time, we're seeing more and more empirical evidence about correlations with certain patterns of neuro response and in-market success. And I think as the sub-industry evolves, we're going to see much better modeling and predictive value once these neuro tools are combined with conscious tools and we have a more holistic or comprehensive understanding of consumer response.
So I understand that you think that neuromarketing is a complement of the other traditional marketing, research market tools and practices.
I think that they both go hand in hand, and that given that we know so much about the importance of emotion and the unconscious in how we make decisions and what guides our behavior, we would be very foolish not to include that in our investigation of consumer response. At the same time, cognition and intention matters, and so you really need to have both sides of the equation.
Good. Talking about the neuromarketing methodologies, I would like to ask you about the sample in a neuromarketing study. And this means two things. What are the sample size on the one hand, and what is the importance of the composition of that sample size? I am asking you because on the part of the sample size, I have heard, read elsewhere, that some people are claiming that 30 is the golden number in terms of the sample size. On the one hand. On the other hand, I have heard and read some people that are claiming that the extrapolation of the results is quite high. That means if you do a neuromarketing study in Brazil, Sao Paulo, you can extrapolate that to people in the UK or in Finland.
Okay, Edgar, this is a really complex question because it has a lot of different elements and aspects of it, and I have a very firm point of view on this.
Great.
So We'll take it in pieces.
Sure.
First of all, the rules of statistics do not change just because you're using neurometrics.
Okay.
So if you want to be projectable, if you want to do significance testing, if you want to be representative of a sample, the same rules apply. Qualitative research is qualitative, quantitative research is quantitative. There are more factors involved as well. If you ask me questions about a stimuli, I'm looking at the stimuli, I'm responding and thinking about it, and I'm trying to be rational, so I'm talking about the stimuli.
Uh-huh.
If you're passively measuring my response to something through, say, biometrics or EEG, even eye tracking, there could be something inside that is a stimuli, a thought that I have. There's no way for you to know, but I think, I forgot to do something my boss asked me to do, oh my God. And I'm not showing it to you on my face because I can control my facial muscles, but inside, something's upsetting me.
Uh-huh.
You're never going to know that. You're going to look at the biometrics and go, oh my God, something happened. There was really quite an event here. That is why you need enough of a quantitative sample to be able to take out those outliers. Okay. So that if the majority of a sample responds at a certain place in an exposure to a stimuli, you have a good probability of believing that it's a reaction to that stimuli. If you're doing it with too few people, you don't know. Now, one of the things that I have concerns about with really small sample sizes is that it's not very repeatable in many cases. I mean, I've done studies in my previous job working with EEG where we would have a much bigger sample and we would take groups of 30 on how they responded to an ad from the same homogeneous sample, and it didn't necessarily imply the same results. I think that there is an exaggeration of the acceptance of smaller sample sizes because it's wish fulfillment, because it's much cheaper to have smaller sample sizes. I think you can no more project how people are going to react in Argentina and extrapolate that to Japan than you can if you did a 30-person survey and tried to project it to Japan. I really think it's a fallacy. And if, in fact, 30 is enough, and what we are seeing is that there's diminishing returns with some of these metrics if you add sample. Eye tracking is one that doesn't require as many because it's much more of a just a sort of universal physiological response of what attracts your eye. And so it means that you're measuring very blunt effects. But if you're trying to measure something that has to do with how somebody really feels about something that is contextual, that has to do with cultural references, personal meaning, the bigger the sample you're going to need. Otherwise, I think you're measuring a very blunt effect, like pain. I don't have to have a big sample to know if I prick people with a pin, it's going to hurt. One or two people. You know, I used to work for a boss. He was brilliant. He said, I only need to stick my arm out the window to know if it's raining. I don't need a really big sample. So if it's something is a universal effect, then the smaller. But if something has to do with how do I feel about luxury, how do I feel about the category, how do I feel about your brand, let's get serious. We have to have a bigger sample.
Okay, good. Everything is perfect. Neuromarketing is not an exception. What are the limitations of neuromarketing?
Well, first of all, it only covers the non-conscious. Second of all, it's a newly developed science, so we don't have all of the questions yet. We don't completely understand how the brain works. And when I say we, I mean academia and the medical community. It's the last great mystery of the universe is to really understand how the brain works. And we're getting closer and closer, and exponentially every year we learn more. But there's still a lot to learn, and that's why it's such an exciting time to be in this field. All you have to do is get involved to be part of discovery and part of learning.
Now we have the brain and we use it every day, but sometimes we kind of tend to forget that it is the most complex system we have ever faced as human beings, as a race. So yeah, it's one of the limitations in this case, the complexity of these things. Good. Um, Next thing. Nowadays, we the human beings have access to knowledge as never before. The accessibility to knowledge is quite big. Either it's cheap or very cheap or even free, on the one hand. On the other hand, the neurotechnologies such as EEG eye tracking are dropping their prices. As with any other technology, the prices are going down. That means as the time is going by, they are becoming more and more accessible. So we have access to the knowledge, we have access to the technologies, and based on that thing, I have met and heard and read people that are claiming they are doing neuromarketing with a kind of suspicious background, to use a kind adjective for those people. The question is, what are the aspects, the characteristics good neuromarketing has or should have in order to identify it as it, or for a person who wants to become a good neuromarketing skills, knowledge?
Well, it's the same a little bit with market research in general. A couple of years ago, you could have asked me, how do you feel about people doing surveys themselves on SurveyMonkey? That it's all become so accessible. Knowledge is spreading. And so there are certain fundamentals that people need to understand to apply aspects of neuromarketing. It helps to work with people that have great experience or knowledge or expertise in the field. The good side of what you're talking about is that a vision that some of us share is coming to fruition that might have been thought impossible 10 years ago, because this is the biggest industry change in market research, I think, in our lifetimes, is that we are now taking non-conscious measurement into consideration in a typical research study. And so my prediction is that the majority of research studies, as appropriate, will have both conscious and non-conscious measurement together. It won't be a question of, should I do a neuro study? It will be a question of, which methodology should I use in my study to make sure that I cover the right non-conscious response, in addition to the questions that I ask. And it's going to become standard. And people will become better trained, and certain knowledge will become conventional wisdom as part of the practice. So I think we're on the right path.
You're on the right path. Well, in this way, the question is, do you believe neuromarketing is here to stay, or it is a new trendy thing, a new fashion thing, such as in the last 40 years or so, we have had in management trendy things such as total quality management, such as reengineering, such as Six Sigma, and some others, just to mention a few.
I think the nomenclature may change. I see a lot of people talking now about behavioral sciences or behavioral economics, putting new phraseology on top of the same kind of thing. And that same kind of thing has to do with understanding human motivations, particularly on the non-conscious, unconscious side of things, and how they affect decisions and behavior. That's not going to go away. If we have legitimate learning that's useful and provides value, we're going to take that with us until we get something that, we may be able to improve it over time. So nomenclature will change, but the quest to understand the decision process and what drives behavior is not going to go away unless marketing goes away.
Yeah. Good. In your vision, what is, in a nutshell, what is the current state of neuromarketing, and what are the things that we can expect in the near future? In this second part, you have said some things like the standards and so on.
Well, I got into this area very early, which enabled me to do some pioneering kinds of things and try some things for the first time. And when I first got involved about 10 years ago, everybody was like, what are you talking about? And this is crazy, and why would I need this, and why should I believe this? And we've evolved. And then there was a big debate between conscious and non-conscious measurement, and that was a ridiculous debate, and so we've gotten past that. And what we're seeing now are new stages in the field maturity, and that has to do with better cooperation. We're creating a learning community like we are here at this conference with the NMSBA, and we're finding that we have more in common with each other than we have differences. Some people may prefer different tools and different applications. The truth is, most neuro tools get at some aspect of emotional response and engagement. The only tool that's a little bit different is implicit reaction time, which gets at the impact of things. And so we're finding that clients, for instance, end users are asking different questions. They're not saying, should I be taking this seriously? Should I be using it? But which tool is best for which application? Which vendor has the greatest added value of understanding the implications of their work and how to advise me? Where can I get the best cost? Where can I get the best scalability? Where can I get the best service? And so the dialogue has changed. And the most exciting thing is that we're coming to the point where we're getting past the fundamentals and we're starting to really combine our learning to having meta understanding of how advertising works, how consumers respond in different situations. And so at this conference, for instance, one of the papers I presented had to do with the impact of sound versus visuals in advertising impact. Other people have talked about different aspects of creativity. We're just raising our game with the learning that's becoming common knowledge.
Good. We are in the context of the Neuromarketing World Forum in Barcelona. You gave a talk yesterday, and it was about emotions, a common topic among almost all the talks. What is the way you define emotion?
Well, I think about it in a number of ways. There's the technical answer, which has to do with it's a physiological reaction that starts deep in the center of our brain and it radiates through our body almost like a chain reaction, and it affects our heart rate and our sweat and our pupils and our facial expressions. It's just a whole physiological reaction, and it leaves an effect on us. It leaves a residual impact. That's different than what you might call feelings. Feelings are the things that you talk about in poetry and literature, and those are more taking those emotional reactions and putting them together into a concept, into an idea. But the first is very physiological, and it happens very fast.
So emotion could be like a fear, because
yes, surprise,
disgust,
happiness, all kinds of things.
And a feeling, if I understand well, could be like love,
yes,
like generosity, like
concern, doubt, envy. Feelings are a little bit more complex.
Okay, good.
And the other thing to think about is that I think about feelings like chords, like musical chords. You don't necessarily just have one feeling at the same time. There's bittersweetness. You could be pleasantly surprised. You could be surprised and horrified. So different signals can be happening at the same time.
Okay, good. Elissa, to finish, do you have something you would like to share with people that are interested in neuromarketing? Something?
Yes. I want people to be open to understanding that there's this new knowledge that's available. And I recommend, there's wonderful books. Everyone starts with Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. It's a great primer, but there are many other books out there that are coming out. And whether you're in neuromarketing or not, we're all humans. We all make decisions every day. We all try to change our habits. And so all of this kind of learning is valuable at both the personal and the professional level.
Great. Elissa, thank you very much for sharing your time, your knowledge, for showing to us your generosity.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Love being here in Barcelona.
Great. Thank you.